jump on as many opportunities as you can, volunteer on things, shoot for free if you can afford it. But then I found out there were no women, which was really strange. I thought, where are all the women shooting out there? Wolf, I'm so nervous. Does this feeling ever go away? And he turned to me and he said, the minute it goes away, you're no longer a good cinematographer. Hi, my name is Zoe Dirse. I'm a cinematographer living in Toronto at the moment. I started in the film industry, I would say around late 1970s, probably 1979. I had started rather late in my career. I had started in my late 20s, because when I was studying at the CSC, did the CSC course, most of the other students were much younger than me. So I was quite anxious to get my eye behind the camera. And within the IATSE structure at the time, it was quite clear that I remember DPs telling me it would take me 10 years to get my eye behind the camera. And I thought, it's too, I got to do this quicker. I had this goal. By the time I was 30, I wanted to be shooting. So I found out about a job at the National Film Board of Canada. And I'd always been interested in documentaries and the kind of films that the National Film Board was doing, and I applied and I got the job. And I was the last person hired at the National Film Board of Canada, and I was there for 17 years. Did 70 plus documentaries while I was there. When I moved to Toronto, I was shooting a lot of documentaries, and then I was approached a few times to come to lecture at various schools like Ryerson and York University and other places to talk about my career as a female DP in the industry. A few people said, well, why don't you try doing more of this? And then I sort of fell into teaching a couple of years at Ryerson part-time, and then I got a job full-time at Sheridan College teaching cinematography. First of all, I would say to any student who comes into a film school and wants to study and focus on cinematography is to shoot everything you can. Shoot. Volunteer for everything you can get. Any project you can get on, just shoot as much as you can, because ultimately, as you know, and many of us in this room know, that we only get good with the amount of work we can do and put out there. You don't just suddenly wake up one morning and you're a brilliant cinematographer. It's a craft. It's something that you learn as you progress throughout your career and you develop. So school is fabulous because you have that opportunity. You have that space of three to 4 years to actually develop those skills. So I remember the first year I was teaching at Sheridan College, I was teaching in the advanced film program. And it was quite a unique program. We had six cinematography students, which wasn't very many. And in particular, that first year, there were 2 students who constantly were in the school, behind the camera. They were taking the cameras, they were shooting all the time. And I remember they would call me sometimes, like in the middle of the night, and say, Zoe, something's wrong with the camera, and we're working with, they were shooting, they loved film at that point. They were shooting quite a bit of film, and they would run into glitches and they would phone me up. And I said, what are you doing at school at 9 o'clock? He says, well, we're shooting a little something here. And one of the students had said to me, he said, well, I calculated that I'm spending $90 a day to be at school. So I want to be here 9 hours a day to make it worth my while. And he is now a very successful commercial shooter out there, and also a member of the CSC. In terms of what you should do as what my advice would be to a young person coming out of film school is to just jump on as many opportunities as you can, volunteer on things, shoot for free if you can afford it, and don't be shy to just contact somebody or collaborate with some DP who's out there that you can sort of shadow or get into a mentorship program. Certainly getting on low budget productions, music videos are a good way to experiment and develop your craft. Documentary is a good segue into. I know a lot of, especially female DPs, have started out in documentary. And Iris Nig is one example. Maya Bankovic is another example. I know Kristen Fieldhouse did many people start out in documentaries, and it's a way to sort of move into dramatic work if that's your goal. At that point, there wasn't many schools out there like there are now. Ryerson was really the only technical school where you could learn the craft. So I decided to do the apprenticeship route and learn through workshops. But then I found out there were no women, which was really strange. I thought, where are all the women shooting out there? It didn't even occur to me, even though I read credits at the end of films and things, I really didn't see. So then I thought to myself, well, there must be some women out there. And so I sort of went back and looked at the French New Wave directors, and I went, oh, there's Nurita Viv, who's shooting for Claire Denis, and she's shooting with that crowd out there in Paris. And then there was a handful of women in the U.S., and then in Canada, I heard about the woman that I ended up working with at the National Film Board. I heard of one woman at the CBC, and that was it. And then once I got into working as a camera assistant, I discovered, there was a handful of women out there working as camera assistants. So I quickly made sure I got to know them, and sort of, because you were looking for somebody else like you who you can sort of bounce off of and see, and also looking for role models. Who could be your role model is where you're going forward. So I was a bit surprised that there were so few women. And when I joined IATSE in 1979, there was only one other woman, Joan Hutton, who was there, which was even more surprising to me. There was like two. And then the film board was, then there was one woman at the film board when I got there. But often I'd be on film sets, and I was the only woman in the camera crew. And so that was interesting to sort of navigate that. I mean, by the time I got to Toronto after the film board, I decided to join the CSC so I could be part of a group, and I was used to working with groups of camera cinematographers and that were very supportive of each other at the film board. So I was kind of looking for that sense of community in Toronto. And when I joined the CSC, as a full CSC member, there were only two other women. That was Joan Hutton and Pauline Hinton in 1997. I went, now that's not very good. After all these years, there's only two in the CSC. So I sort of, I kept thinking, how do we fix this? How do we make it better? And one of the reasons I wanted to go into teaching, by the way, was to sort of be more of a role model and to be there as a presence to students to say, I did it, this was my career, you can do this as well. I think for young women wanting to become directors of photography, I think it's really important to find other women that are doing it, that you can sort of bounce off of, look at their careers, befriend them, use them as mentors, and also to be realistic and realize what the industry is like. The system is fairly patriarchal, the whole cinema structure. And to work within those parameters is not always, it's changing. I think it's changing a lot. There are a lot more women coming up and going into the career. But I think the more women we can get interested in the craft of cinematography and even in coming into it and working in it, we can even out the playing field and have a more balanced sort of film environment. Yeah, I've been thinking about that a lot and writing about it and reading about the whole concept of the female gaze and in the perspective of behind the camera. And I've often thought of myself, I'm behind the camera and I'm looking through that lens. And what am I seeing? Is what I'm seeing different than my male colleague sitting next to me? How am I manipulating the camera? How am I manipulating the image? How am I manipulating the lighting or whatever to enhance the image? Is it about my gender? Is it about my background? Is it my philosophies, my political? any of those things, what is it that comes into play when you look through the lens? And I certainly, if I look at films that I have shot in the past, and I do a kind of an analysis of why did I decide to go there, especially in documentary where it's very intuitive and you're kind of following a scenario or a sequence or a moment. Why did I suddenly, like I'm shooting two people interacting, and what is it in me that instinctually goes down to film the person's hands? Because there was suddenly an embrace happened, something instinctual between my interpretation, between what was happening in front of me, and then how I manipulated the camera or the movement to capture that moment. I think there are many factors in play, but I think gender does have a certain perspective. And I think now that I've been watching, I try to, whenever I watch films now, especially because I've been watching a lot of stuff on network television, that sort of thing, and on Netflix, and I always look at I always read the credits. And I remember when I first was watching The Wire, which was an older series, and I was thinking, wow, this camera work is amazing. This is like, there's just something happening between this camera and the way that person is interpreting these characters. And it was a female cinematographer who shot the first 6 episodes, and I could immediately see the difference between when it shifted to a male cinematographer. A certain kind of intimacy was gone in that particular case. So I do think that gender is an issue, and sometimes is in my case, when I was working at the women's studio at the film board for the women's studio, they specifically wanted to work with a female cinematographer for precisely that reason. But it was a struggle to come to terms with the fact, like, I wanted to be as good as everybody else when I was first starting out, and I didn't want to be judged by my gender. I wanted to be as good as everyone out there. So I really focused on developing the craft and developing the skills so that I was as good as the next person next to me. And then the rest would all fall into place. Whether people hired me because of my gender, or they hired me because I was a really good shooter, or because I was really efficient, or I could really deliver something, or I had a particular sensibility to the story that I was hired for, but I just wanted to be good technically so that I could fit in and do the best job possible. So I think for any young person starting out in the industry, I think it's important to master the skills, and then once you have that kind of confidence, then you can conquer the world. Well, I was telling you the story when I was at the National Film Board. I was walking with my mentor, Wolf Koenig, at the time, and he was producing this short drama series called Bioethics, and we were marching off to the laboratory to look at our film rushes. And my heart was racing, and it was like my first kind of serious drama that I was shooting. And I just was, even though I had a lot of confidence, because in terms of my exposures, and I knew I was confident with my lighting, I wanted it to look good. I knew I could do the technical side, but I wanted it to be visually beautiful and pleasing to the directors and to the producers. And so I'm so nervous walking down that hallway. And I just turned to Wolf and I said, Wolf, I'm so nervous. Does this feeling ever go away? And he turned to me and he said, the minute it goes away, you're no longer a good cinematographer. And I sort of kept that in the back of my mind, thinking, it's okay. It's okay to feel that anxiety and that tension. But it's also, it creates a kind of adrenaline, which I think you kind of need for the industry. I mean, you have to kind of be up and on edge and really hyper-aware, because there is a urgency in this kind of work that we do. So it does take a certain kind of personality, I think, as well. I mean, you have to be willing to sort of deal with that. And also the anxiety of, am I going to get a job tomorrow? Am I going to pay my bills? And it's interesting, because I find that I've always been able to pay my bills. And most people You know, I mean, certainly circumstances can happen where it's difficult, but freelance filmmakers, they usually tend to always, and artists often, find a way to sort of keep going. So, well, to a young cinematographer starting out in the industry, just follow your passion. If this is the career that you think you want to do, then throw yourself into it. Do everything that you can. Educate yourself constantly. I mean, you have to the technology is constantly changing. The level of your craft is essential, that you just sort of constantly upgrade yourself. Stay connected to other people in your community, your film community, and just follow, and as Joseph Campbell you'd say, just follow your bliss. And if you follow your bliss, you'll be happy and you'll have a great career.